Good afternoon or good evening, everybody, or maybe it's morning where you are. It is May 19th, Saturday afternoon at this end, a little after 5 o'clock. Back here from a couple of events earlier in the day, and I wanted to get this out to both the subset of trading offices that we have established around the globe, as well as to the larger trading community. As I've said, I want to continue to use this venue as an opportunity to just talk trading, reach out to everybody, both again within our own trading community, as well as those in the general industry. So I want to talk about. I got four words, or is it 4 words? I got 4 words written down here that I think can be helpful. Regardless of where you may be trading and that sort of thing. So the 4 words, the first one I wrote down is holistic. Holistic. And I think when we look at our trading careers and lives and results, good, bad, or indifferent, I think the more that we can take an approach to this that is akin to our lives and to in this day and age, medicine, health, for example, where we're looking at holistic approaches, preventative maintenance, natural remedies instead of the quick fix, the pop a pill type of thing. And when I look at my success in trading, and of course what we're trying to work into the expansion of network that we have right now, it's all about a holistic approach. And so when you see a lot of the connections that we have been making and adding and incorporating in terms of effective cost structures, in terms of transaction costs, the element of bringing in the trading psychologist, if you will, and we are, again, more than blessed with the opportunity to partner with Robin Dane, who has just been so valuable already in her short time with us. Gave us a 2.5-hour presentation the other night, and realizing that trading is far more than just patterns, and that this is a mental sport, and so that we need to maintain that part of our being. And so again, looking at certainly what we are trying to emulate and trying to craft in the continued network expansion that we have, then you're really seeing a holistic approach, a holistic intent of building this out. So I want to keep that theme throughout what we're doing. And then again, if you're trading on your own, I think the more that you can look at your own trading from a holistic, general approach, and not just focusing on one specific element, it'd be like, paying attention to the gas in your car, for example, without really caring what your oil level may be doing, and we know that that's important maintenance. So that's one word that came to mind: holistic. The second word that came to mind, and we've been at our particular effort for 2 weeks now, and the word that comes to mind for me is structure. And I went back and looked at, many of you know that the first week I was here for the first 4 days, and then I was off helping lead a retreat on a week ago Friday through that whole weekend. And then I was here this past week. And I'm looking at some of the feedback and comments, and the word structure keeps coming in over and over again. What I'm seeing, and it shouldn't have been a surprise to me, but I guess I'm seeing that when we're looking at for example, our particular effort, we now have 127 trading offices, and I'm calling these trading offices. We've got them plotted on a map. Some of you have seen this. I've tweeted some updates, and certainly the team has seen this in a little bit greater detail. We have 127 trading offices, and I believe that we only have two of those people trading alongside of each other. So we've got a lot of people that we've gone from the floor model and everybody trading there years ago to prop firm models, to physical models where people in the same building but not on the floor, to a largely dispersed industry. And so what we've done so far is pull these 127 offices together. And the word I keep saying over and over again is structure. You're providing structure. And again, whether you're part of this effort or trading on your own, the significance and the importance of having structure to your day, to your trading plan, and not only having that plan in place, but following that plan. And so the comments that surprised me a little bit, and again, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, has been, you're providing me with structure. You're providing me with a structure. You're providing me with the boundaries, the boundary lines on a tennis court or a basketball court. What is out of bounds? What is in bounds? And as we've yanked each other affectionately, hopefully, in our effort, back in bounds where we need to, or back, I use the guardrail and the road terminology. We've established guardrails. What I'm finding that is that in a group environment, if properly structured, you have structure, and you're encouraged to follow that path and not deviate from that path and get called out, for example, when you're off that path. The third word that comes to mind, and it really gets back to the structure issue, was a thought I had on Friday, which is poker. And this was based on a conversation that I had with somebody via email and a little bit in the room over the course of the week, and it had to do with the fact that when you've been tweeting out the bias grids and the setups and the success of those, it looks relatively easy. Yet when you are in the venue, there's some context that gets put around that, and the immediate thought that I had was that it's very much like when you're watching poker on TV, where in most cases, and if you look at how they've done the World Series of Poker over the years, they've varied a couple of times in terms of how they've done this. But you typically see an edited version. You typically see the hands that are the action hands. You're not going around and watching these guys and gals fold for 90% of the time. They hone in on the action because that's what people want to see. That's the interesting stuff. That's the interesting hands. And to the same extent with the tweets that I do with those setups, you're often seeing the gem of the day. You're often seeing, that setup that occurs. And so there's a bit of a transition for folks from when they see this stuff on Twitter in a snapshot phase, which may be, once a day or once or twice a day, to now being in an environment where we're watching or monitoring this stuff, not quite 24/7, but a long time over the course of the day. So it's very much like when, I don't know how they're doing it now, but ESPN was doing a recent World Series of Poker. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and they didn't cherry pick the hands. They basically had it shown live. I think there was a slight delay, but it was for the most part shown live. And so you saw it live. You saw the folding. You saw the real business of playing poker. And you had the action hands, but you also had all of this really boring, mundane time of just fold. And that's very much like this business. Okay, so I know a great conversation again back and forth with one of our participants that said, well, gee, it's not as clean as Twitter is, and he's right in that we've got to discern over the course of the day when that is setting up and when it's approaching and how to manage it. And so a lot of the day may be just waiting and then pouncing on that, and then that is the result of that. So it's the work behind the scenes that we don't often see on TV with poker tournaments, and we don't often see, with any of us that may be tweeting or blogging or sharing things. It's just a small subset of the entire day where there's a whole lot of other stuff going on, and in most cases, that's just simply monitoring. It also brings me back to yesterday afternoon where we had options expiration, and I ended up putting on one of the charts that we were monitoring in large print, PM options expiration, low percentage probabilities or something like that. And it just overrode the chart, and it was there. You couldn't miss it. And that was based on some input I had from some traders that say, well, what happens when I come in and I don't know what's going on? How do I get caught up to speed? And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but at least I could put something in text that everybody's watching that basically says, don't go for it. And in hindsight, if you tried to go for breaks or what looked like consolidation coils and breaks or this or that, you just would have gotten tortured, and probably saved, the team, collectively, thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars yesterday just by just putting that up there. And that's not an exaggeration, because I know it's how difficult it is just to sit back and do nothing, especially when you're on your own. And so what we did yesterday afternoon is we went through one of my favorite books, The Tao of Poker. We talk about specific rules in here that, again, I've said this before, that those of you that followed me over the years, this is, in my opinion, the best trading book that was ever written. It's a $10 book on Amazon. It's called The Tao of Poker, T-A-O, pronounced Tao, by Larry Phillips. A great read. You can read a couple paragraphs at a time. You can read a couple pages at a time. It's about 230 pages, and there's, some 300 rules. So, it's just great stuff here. And then we took some time actually to talk through excerpts of this crazy book that this guy came up with, right? In terms of trying to use that time productively. And looking back at it, I think we did a pretty good job of keeping people out of the market. And I had some folks in the room ask, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? And it's like, there's nothing, guys. We said it yesterday. We said it this morning. And instead of having to keep responding to that question, decided to use the afternoon productively. And what I found, again, and it gets back to the term of structure, that we've got to be self-aware of when the opportunities are and when they're not. There are prime times, there are not. For those of you that are in the community, we have this grid that shows across the top the days of the week, going up, down the sheet. We've got times of day, and it's all color-coded. And one of the things that people realize when they first get in there is that most of the color coding of the day and the time is either dark red or red, meaning not interested in trading no matter what happens. And there's some exceptions, but for the most part, that grid, time and day of week, is largely red. And then there's some green spaces there in terms of typically 7 to 8:30 a.m. Eastern, when Europe is approaching its midday. There's some just outstanding, fluid, easy rhythms before you get to the cowboy market open, right? And then there's the time after the initial balance in the U.S. market that settles. That's often very fertile in terms of 10:30 into noon Eastern time. And then you've got some variations throughout the course of the week, but most of that grid basically is a no trading zone. And those of us that approach this business in terms of seeking action, or maybe not even are seeking action, but we have FOMO, fear of missing out, and we're trading on our own. It's often easy to push when as has often been said, you can't push a rope. And so what I thought yesterday, at least what I saw, was 130 some traders just about basically using that time chatting. It was like we're sitting in a lounge. And the more that I can encourage everybody to get into a situation where you completely understand when it's not a good time to trade, have a journal, have the times written down, mark it as I have. I think that'll do you a lot of good in your trading results. The last term I had, I said I had 4, right? The one that came to mind at this end is that of rent. And this is arguably more applicable to the folks in the live effort. Again, I've said I'm going to try to get away from the Don Miller name of this, because we're building something that I believe is I know is so far beyond any one individual, and even as great as Robin Dane has been. And I've got the shorthand now in the tweets and in the posts. It's really Miller Dane, because it's as much about trading and psychology as it is about anything else. It goes far beyond that. It goes on to the concept of having some kind of modest rent for a virtual business office where we can pool funds and we can use those funds productively in terms of bringing coaching in, bringing. I've said before, it's like paying rent in an office where you have your internet taken care of and your utilities, and you have some common space. Maybe you have some food and beverages brought in, and you have all of this built-in infrastructure that's there to allow everybody to work even more productively than they would be able to work, and gain efficiencies and economies of scale versus if they had to work on their own. And so that's the exact same concept that we've created here. So I have thought about the rent fee, and I've thought about, again, we want to do even more with what we've got. But I am hesitant at this point from increasing the fee because I want to keep it reasonable for everybody. We therefore have kept the charter rate in place at least through this first month. I don't know what I'm going to do down the road. I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish with this that's going to take some more funding because, again, we've got data feed costs, we've got streaming allowance, and there's a cost of that. We've got coaching and all that kind of stuff. So, I want to continue to do that. But the concept I keep coming back to is rent, and that we're all in a virtual office of sorts, even though we're spread out. It's amazing. I'm looking at the map on my other screen here, and we've got clusters around the country. We've got I think we counted about 20 or so offices in the New Jersey, New York area. We've got about half a dozen in the Boston area. You go down to Florida, we've got about now it looks like about 10 trading offices in Florida. Texas is growing. We've got several in Dallas and Houston. The LA San Diego corridor, we're growing there. We've got about 8 or 9, it looks like, in the San Francisco area. We've got half a dozen, the Northwest, and then you go globally, and we are now expanding. We've got now Spain, we got Ireland. If you go northwest to southeast, Ireland, UK, Spain, Italy. I know I'm missing here Switzerland. We're in Prague, Cyprus. And then you head down to the Singapore area, and then down into Australia, and of course not to forget our friends up in Canada. We've got from British Columbia to Newfoundland. So, that was the fourth term that came to me in terms of trying to best describe, whether you are part of this effort or part of another effort or just trading on your own. The concept of having some kind of an overhead space, some kind of a common area, a community where you can gain some efficiencies more so than if you were just doing this by yourself. And some of you who have known me for years know this is a bit of a change in my approach and my attitude. And it's not just because I'm facilitating this effort and I want you in. The reason I'm doing it is because of that change in belief, and it was actually based on some counsel that some of you have given me over the years, which is expressing your firm belief that we are not meant to. It's important to be self-sufficient and all that, but we're not meant to do this, live this life alone. And so the answer becomes, or the question becomes, how do we best create something that can be productive and do something in a way where people are able to generate far more income, incremental income, given any given expense or asset cost. So, it's a bit like a capitalized asset, if you will, in the business world in terms of again, what we're trying to provide and offer. The few weeks, I'll wrap this up quickly here. I mean, the last few weeks has been really helpful. It's been taking a lot of focus and energy at this end. Telling someone telling several people, in fact, most of the room, it's taken more energy than I expected to. It has clearly gained a life of its own. I do believe, with all due modesty and humility, that it's changing the model. It's changing the industry model for trading rooms. And so to that extent, again, we're not the only venue in town, and there are a lot of great ones out there. I think we are taking a bit of a different approach in terms of, again, looking at this from a true virtual office perspective. And as the team knows, we've got plans in terms of perhaps pooling funds at some point, making sure that we all benefit from this. But right now, we all have our own independent businesses, and we are connected virtually, and we're connected through the concept of this virtual office with constant streaming, constant discussion, and we're getting to know people by name now. Some people have shared photos, and to the extent that people have shared where they are in the industry, we are already talking about having gatherings in some of these areas, looking to get New York, New Jersey probably done first, because my wife loves New York City. She'd love to visit there. So we'll probably do something here in the Cape as well. So again, for those that are part of other venues or trading on your own, I guess my takeaway is not to, come join us, and that sort of thing. I certainly want you to understand what we're doing and provide that open invitation. And I encourage you to talk to other people that are part of this. Don't talk to me necessarily. Talk to other people, because they'll give you the straight shooting, and it should be in line with this. But I want you to hear it from other people. And if you're trading on your own, I think just the more that you can structure your own business around these concepts, the concept of structure, create structure in your day, very, very important. Easier to do when you're seeing everybody else around you with that same structure. To my friends and colleagues in the trading room, as I've said, it's a rental type arrangement, so you got to be there. You got to be there. People are going to come and go over time, but you've got to create structure in your trading to be there. As I've often said, you have to be present to win. And so I know I pulled some of you off at times in terms of reminding us of all. I'm a player coach. I'm a trader. I'm also facilitating this, so it's important that we all follow the same rules. And I may yank you in a little bit. You may yank me in a little bit. And in fact, I expect that to happen. And that's what we are here to do. We're here to lift up each other. So, again, if you're doing this on your own, if you can create structure in your trading life, your trading day, make it more objective, make it less emotional, even though we have a lot of fun, and I hope you have fun in this business. I think the more that you can do that, and remember, it's not all about action. Okay. I know there are venues out there that are like auction houses. Okay. They're like racetracks. This is not what this is about. This is a very serious endeavor that I've given up another career for, a very lucrative career, to work at, and to create something here that might just tilt this industry in a bit of a direction which I think would be very, very helpful over the long run. So, as I said when I started, it's not about me, it's not about Robin, it's really about what we are creating here as a group. And now, we are now one of some 130 trading offices around the world, and I want to continue to provide value. And I want to continue to see the results that I've seen. Certainly not everybody is doing like gangbusters. We have, sampling of various folks at various ends of the spectrum. We're focusing on bringing the folks that are at the lower end up in terms of skill set, in terms of performance, and we get everybody up to that bar, right? Similar strength, and then we're able to focus as a common community at more of a consistent theme than we are early on. So I'm committed to making that happen. And so that's where we stand right now, and that's the realism of it. So if you're interested in joining us, great. This is not a sell job. It's just making you aware of this to my team, to our trading our network across the world. I thank you again for your trust. I thank you for your commitment. I thank you for your involvement and participation in this effort. This is all going to work largely because of you and the energy that you are putting into this and the level of professionalism, and I thank you for that. It's certainly making this a labor of love, and I pass that on in Robin's name as well. Again, we're very, very fortunate to have somebody who's worked with Tudor Investments, who has worked with hedge fund managers, billionaire hedge fund managers, professional athletes, and still continues to work with them, and is my personal coach as well. So that's what I've got right now. Those concepts, let them sink in a little bit. I hope that helps you wrap your trading in a little bit of a tighter box. And to you folks in the room, I will see you Monday, Monday, the Tony Dungy Uncommon Life Review at 6:40 in the morning, and I will join you at 7 a.m. as well. So God bless all of you. Have a great, great weekend, and we'll see you later. Take care. Bye.